Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As the sun peeked over the horizon, a boisterous bar echoed with the challenge. Amidst the haze of alcohol and camaraderie, a dare took shape. A simple whim, yet a revolutionary act for Jake, the dare's recipient.
"Skirt to work. A mere $100.
Slurred his colleague, Thomas, between guffaws, sliding the wager across the grimy counter. The others joined in, their laughter infectious, yet tinged with anticipation. When Jake awoke, the dare's echo lingered, transforming into a crisp uniform, a gray skirt, demure in length, and a blue shirt, neatly pressed, awaiting their owner. The mirror reflected his hesitation, the trembling fingers adjusting the unfamiliar attire, questioning the decision made under the spell of jovial spirits. Stepping into the office, the heaviness of the atmosphere struck him. Silent gazes trailed, whispered rumors arose, encompassing the corridors. His mere presence ignited an unspoken dialogue that he could neither ignore nor comprehend. Some laughed, others stared, a few pretended not to notice at all. The morning crawled by in excruciating slowness until the email arrived. "Mr. Smith, please report to HR immediately." The walk to Human Resources felt like walking the plank. Each step on the industrial carpet brought a new worst-case scenario to mind. Job termination seemed increasingly likely with every passing doorway. Ms. Albright, the HR director, sat behind her immaculate desk, hands folded neatly atop a binder labeled Company Policies. Her steel gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun, glasses perched precisely on her nose. Nothing about her expression revealed what might come next. "Mr. Smith?" she began, her voice neutral but firm. "I understand you've made a rather unusual choice regarding your attire today."
"It was just a dare,"
came the nervous response.
"I didn't think it would cause so much trouble."
Ms. Albright's expression never changed.
"If you choose to wear a skirt, Mr. Smith, you must adhere to the female employee dress code in its entirety."
What? Opening the binder with deliberate slowness, she pushed it across the desk. "Page 37, Section 4, paragraphs 1 through 16. The female dress code. Since you've chosen to wear a female-designated garment, you must comply with all aspects of the appropriate code." Her strategy was transparent. This was malicious compliance in its purest form. She expected a quick retreat, an embarrassed apology, and a promise to never disrupt the workplace again. Instead, something unexpected happened. A flicker of defiance ignited. "Fine." The response came quietly, but with unmistakable resolve. "I'll follow the female dress code. All of it." Ms. Albright's composure faltered briefly, a momentary widening of the eyes, before she recovered. "Very well, Mr. Smith. I expect full compliance starting tomorrow." That evening involved a frantic shopping expedition, department store after department store, dressing rooms, and confused sales associates until a basic wardrobe took shape. Blouses in various styles, skirts that fell to appropriate business lengths, hosiery, and most challenging of all, heels. The morning routine stretched from 15 minutes to nearly an hour. The reflection in the mirror revealed someone with carefully applied foundation, subtle eyeshadow, and lips tinted just enough to meet the professional appearance requirements outlined in the handbook. Walking into the office the second day caused even more commotion than the first. The gray skirt had been replaced by a pleated sunshine yellow one that swayed with each step. The plain blue button-up was now a cream-colored blouse with subtle ruffling at the collar. Low heels clicked across the tile of the lobby, announcing an arrival that needed no introduction. Ms. Albright stood by the reception desk, clearly waiting to witness the retreat that hadn't come. Her mouth formed a thin line as she took in the complete transformation. "Good morning, Ms. Albright," came the greeting, accompanied by a small smile. "Mr. Smith," she replied stiffly. "Actually," came the response after a moment's hesitation, "I think I'll go by Zion for now. It works either way." Week 1 passed in a blur of adjustments, learning to sit differently, discovering how to walk in heels without toppling over, managing the constant attention and whispers. Some colleagues were supportive, others maintained a distance, and a few made their disapproval painfully clear. By the second week, the routine became more natural. The makeup application grew steadier, the wardrobe expanded to include more variety, and something unexpected began to happen. What had started as defiance, as a refusal to be cowed by Ms. Albright's transparent manipulation, was becoming something else entirely. It felt right. Standing in front of the bathroom mirror one morning during the 3rd week, carefully applying mascara, a thought surfaced that had been lurking below consciousness. This isn't just about the dare anymore. That night involved research, hours of reading personal accounts, medical information, and resources. By morning, a name had crystallized. Elizabeth. It felt like discovering something that had always been there, hidden behind a veil now finally lifted. The next day, Elizabeth wore a forest green pencil skirt and ivory blouse to work. Her blonde hair, still short but growing out, was styled as femininely as possible. She scheduled another meeting with Ms. Albright.
"Mr. Smith,"
the HR director began, her tone suggesting she was about to claim victory in their unspoken contest.
"Elizabeth,"
came the quiet correction.
I'm transgender. This whole situation helped me realize who I am."
Ms. Albright's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, confusion, disbelief, and finally, uncertainty. "I see. I'll need to discuss the company policies regarding transition in the workplace," Elizabeth continued, her voice gaining confidence with each word. "And I'd appreciate your support in communicating this to the team." 6 months later, Elizabeth sat at her desk, now adorned with a small pride flag and several photos of her with supportive friends. Her hormone therapy had begun 3 months ago, and subtle changes were already noticeable. Her blonde hair had grown out enough to frame her face softly, and she'd developed a wardrobe that expressed her personal style, professional, but with touches of color that brought her joy. Ms. Albright stopped by her desk one afternoon, something she rarely did. "Ms. Smith," she said, using the name and title that had been officially changed in the company records. "A moment?" Elizabeth looked up, setting aside the report she'd been working on. "Of course. I wanted to—" Ms. Albright seemed uncharacteristically hesitant. "I wanted to acknowledge that I may have acted with less than professional intentions when this all began." Elizabeth smiled slightly. "You mean when you tried to embarrass me into conforming?" Ms. Albright winced. "Yes, well, I didn't anticipate this outcome." "Neither did I," Elizabeth admitted. "But I'm grateful. In a strange way, you helped me find myself." The office had adapted to Elizabeth's transition with varying degrees of acceptance. Most colleagues were supportive, or at least respectful. Some relationships had strengthened, while others had faded. The company had been forced to examine its policies and make them more inclusive. A year after the dare, Elizabeth hosted a small gathering at her apartment to celebrate both her transition anniversary and her recent promotion. Her living space had transformed along with her. Softer colors, more personal touches, photos documenting her journey. To Elizabeth, toasted her friend Maria, raising a glass, who turned a dare into self-discovery. And to Ms. Albright, Elizabeth added with a laugh, who tried to shame me and instead set me free. The party continued late into the evening, friends sharing stories and laughter. When everyone had gone, Elizabeth stood before her full-length mirror, taking in her reflection. The sunshine yellow skirt, her first real feminine purchase, hung in her closet as a reminder of where the journey had begun. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. So proud of you, sweetheart. Dad sends his love, too. That relationship had been the hardest, requiring patience, education, and time. They weren't perfect, but they were trying, and that meant everything. Elizabeth's therapy session the following week focused on her progress and ongoing challenges. I never expected a workplace confrontation would lead to this, she told Dr. Reeves, gesturing to herself. Today she wore a lavender dress with a cardigan, her growing blonde hair tucked behind her ears. Life-changing realizations often come when we least expect them, Dr. Reeves observed. How are things at work now? Better. Ms. Albright actually recommended me for the promotion. I think it's her way of making amends. And socially? Elizabeth considered this. Dating is complicated, but I'm meeting new people through the support group. I'm not rushing anything. What about those original friends? The ones who made the dare? A small smile. Mark paid me the $100. Said I'd more than earned it. Daniel took longer to come around, but he's getting there. The second year brought more changes. Elizabeth's medical transition continued, bringing both physical and emotional adjustments. She'd become something of an unofficial resource for the company on transgender issues, even helping develop more inclusive policies. One day, she found herself in the elevator with a new employee who seemed nervous on her first day. First day jitters? Elizabeth asked, kindly. The woman nodded, clutching her employee packet. That obvious? I remember my first day. Well, my first day as myself anyway. It gets easier. The woman looked confused, then understanding dawned. Oh, you're Elizabeth Smith. HR mentioned you during orientation. You helped create the new inclusion policies. Elizabeth smiled. That's me. Let me know if you need anything. We were all new once. Later that week, Elizabeth received an unexpected email from Ms. Albright, who had been promoted to a regional position. Elizabeth, I'm contacting you regarding a company-wide initiative to improve our inclusion policies across all branches. Given your experience and the valuable insight you've provided to our location, I would like to invite you to join the advisory committee. This is a voluntary position that would involve quarterly meetings and some additional consultations. Please let me know if you're interested. Regards, Victoria Albright, Regional HR Director. Elizabeth stared at the screen, remembering that first confrontation in the HR office. The journey from that moment to this one had been neither straight nor easy, but it had led to a place she couldn't have imagined. She typed her reply. Ms. Albright, I would be honored to join the committee. Thank you for thinking of me. Perhaps we could discuss the details over coffee. Regards, Elizabeth Smith. The coffee meeting revealed a different side to Ms. Albright. Victoria, as she now asked Elizabeth to call her. Away from the office, she seemed less rigid, even admitting her own journey of understanding. I was raised with very traditional values, Victoria explained, stirring her latte. When you came in wearing that skirt, I saw it as mockery. I wanted to put you in your place. And instead, Elizabeth prompted, wearing a navy blue dress today, her blonde hair now reaching her shoulders. Instead, I learned something about courage and authenticity. Victoria looked directly at Elizabeth. I've never seen someone become more themselves so visibly. It's been educational. Elizabeth smiled. For both of us. The advisory committee work proved rewarding, allowing Elizabeth to help shape policies that would make others' journeys easier. She found herself traveling occasionally to other branches, sharing her experiences and providing training. During one such trip, she met Ryan, an IT manager with kind eyes and a quick wit. Their professional interactions gradually shifted to personal conversations over lunches and eventually dinner. I should be upfront, Elizabeth said during their third dinner together. I'm transgender. I don't hide it, but I don't always lead with it either. Ryan nodded. I know. I figured it out from some things you said about the policy work. And I'd still like to get to know you better, if you're interested. Their relationship developed slowly, built on conversation and common interests, rather than rushing into physical intimacy. Elizabeth found herself opening up about her journey, including the dare that started it all. So, this woman tried to humiliate you, and instead you found yourself? Ryan summarized after hearing the full story. Essentially, yes. That's kind of beautiful, actually. 3 years after the dare, Elizabeth stood in front of another mirror, in another dressing room. This time, she was trying on a formal gown for the company's annual awards banquet. She had been nominated for an Inclusive Leadership Award, ironically by Victoria herself. The emerald green dress complemented her blonde hair, which now fell past her shoulders in soft waves. Her features had softened with hormone therapy, and her confidence had grown with each passing month of living authentically. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Can't wait to see you all dressed up tonight. So proud of you. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of applause and congratulations. When Elizabeth's name was called, she made her way to the podium, the green dress catching the light as she moved. Thank you for this honor, she began, looking out at the gathered employees and executives. 3 years ago, I came to work wearing a skirt because of a dare. I expected it to be a one-day event, something we'd all laugh about and move on from. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Instead, it became the first step on a journey to becoming who I truly am. I'm grateful to this company for eventually supporting that journey, even though it didn't start that way. Her eyes found Victoria in the audience. I'm particularly grateful to those who challenged me, even when the challenge wasn't intended kindly. Sometimes our greatest growth comes from our most difficult moments. The applause as she concluded her speech felt like a culmination of the years of work, both personal and professional. Later, at the reception, Victoria approached her, glass of champagne in hand. Congratulations, Elizabeth. That was a gracious speech. Thank you. I meant what I said. Victoria nodded thoughtfully. I've been thinking about retirement lately. The company will need someone who understands both policy and people to take over the inclusion initiatives. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Are you offering me a job? Not officially. Not yet, but I'm planting the seed. You've done remarkable work, and not just on your own behalf. The evening ended with Ryan driving Elizabeth home, her award sitting on the dashboard.
You were amazing tonight,
he said, reaching over to take her hand as they stopped at a traffic light. It still feels surreal sometimes, she admitted. All of this stemming from a joke, a dare. Sometimes the universe has strange ways of getting us where we need to be. The 4th anniversary of the dare passed quietly. Elizabeth spent the day reflecting on how much had changed. Her apartment was now their apartment, after Ryan had moved in 6 months earlier. Her career had advanced in ways she couldn't have predicted. Her relationship with her family had healed and deepened. That evening, as they prepared dinner together, Ryan seemed unusually nervous. "Everything okay?" Elizabeth asked, chopping vegetables for the salad. She wore comfortable jeans and a soft purple sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. "Yeah, just thinking about something." He stirred the pasta sauce with more focus than it required. After dinner, as they settled on the couch with glasses of wine, he turned to her. "Do you ever think about how different your life might be if you hadn't taken that dare?" Elizabeth considered this. "Sometimes. I might still be living as someone else, unaware of who I could be. Or maybe I would have figured it out eventually, just by a different path." Ryan nodded. "I believe some things are meant to be, even if the path getting there isn't what we expected." He set down his wine glass and reached into his pocket.
"That's why I wanted to ask you something on this particular anniversary."
The small box in his hand made Elizabeth's breath catch.
Elizabeth Smith, who found herself through courage and determination, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?
The ring inside was simple and elegant, a single diamond set in white gold. "Yes," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Absolutely yes." The planning of their wedding coincided with Victoria's retirement and the official offer for Elizabeth to take over the expanded role of Diversity and Inclusion Director. Life seemed to be aligning in ways she could never have imagined 4 years earlier. The wedding was held in the spring, a small ceremony with their closest friends and family. Elizabeth wore a cream-colored gown that made her blonde hair shine like gold in the sunlight. Her father walked her down the aisle, having come to embrace his daughter with a love that transcended his initial confusion. Victoria attended as an honored guest, accompanied by her husband of 30 years. "You look radiant," Victoria told Elizabeth at the reception. "Thank you. For everything, really. I did nothing but put an obstacle in your path." Elizabeth smiled. "Sometimes obstacles are exactly what we need to find our way." Their honeymoon took them to a small coastal town where they walked on beaches and talked about their future. Children were a possibility they both wanted to explore, whether through adoption or other means. "Whatever family we create," Ryan said as they watched the sunset from their balcony, "it will be built on honesty and acceptance." Elizabeth leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "Just like us." The 5th anniversary of the dare found Elizabeth in her new office, surrounded by photos of her wedding and honeymoon, along with awards the company had received for its progressive policies. Her expanded role had brought both challenges and rewards, as she worked to ensure all employees could bring their authentic selves to work. A knock at her door interrupted her reflections. A young person stood there, clutching a folder, clearly nervous. "Ms. Smith, do you have a moment?" "Of course, come in." Elizabeth gestured to the chair across from her desk. Today she wore a royal blue dress, her blonde hair styled in a professional bob. "I'm starting my transition," the employee said after sitting down. "HR directed me to you for guidance on, well, everything." Elizabeth smiled warmly. "I remember how overwhelming it can feel. Let's talk through the practical steps first, then the emotional support you might need." As they talked, Elizabeth shared resources, advice, and her own experiences. She saw in this young person's eyes the same mix of fear and hope she had felt years ago. "The company has come a long way," she explained. "These policies exist because of people like you who have the courage to live authentically." After the meeting, Elizabeth found herself reflecting on the circular nature of her journey. What had begun as a dare, as a moment of workplace conflict, had led to this, a life aligned with her true self, a career helping others find their way, a love built on acceptance and understanding. That evening, she and Ryan celebrated the anniversary with a quiet dinner at home. 5 years, Ryan marveled, raising his glass in a toast. From a dare to here. "It's strange to think how differently things might have turned out," Elizabeth said, her wedding ring catching the light as she raised her own glass. "Do you ever regret taking that dare?" Elizabeth shook her head, her blonde hair swaying with the movement. "Never. It was the first step toward becoming who I was always meant to be." Later, as they stood side by side brushing their teeth before bed, Elizabeth caught sight of their reflection in the bathroom mirror, her in her nightgown, him in his pajamas, the ordinary intimacy of a married couple.
"What are you smiling about?"
Ryan asked, noticing her expression. "Just thinking about mirrors," she replied. "How they used to show me a stranger, and now they show me." He wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close.
"I see you. I've always seen you."
In her office the next day, Elizabeth received an email that brought her journey full circle. The company was planning a major update to all its dress codes, moving toward a gender-neutral policy that focused on professionalism rather than gender-specific rules. They wanted her to lead the initiative. She thought about that gray skirt and blue button-up shirt, the beginning of a journey she could never have predicted. She thought about Ms. Albright's stern face and thinly veiled attempt to force conformity. She thought about the courage it had taken to walk into the office that second day, dressed not in retreat, but in defiance that became self-discovery. Elizabeth typed her response, accepting the challenge with the same determination that had carried her through these 5 years. The sunshine yellow pleated skirt still hung in her closet, preserved as a reminder of her first true step toward becoming Elizabeth. Sometimes, on significant anniversaries, she would take it out and remember the person she had been, scared but defiant, uncertain but brave. That person had become this woman, who now sat in an executive office, wore her identity with pride, and shared her life with a man who loved her completely. Elizabeth Smith, who had once been dared to wear a skirt for a day, now helped shape policies that allowed everyone to come to work as themselves. The dare had ended, but the journey continued, no longer one of defiance, but of authenticity, advocacy, and love. As she closed her laptop that evening, ready to head home to Ryan and their life together, Elizabeth thought about all the twists and turns that had led her here. The road hadn't always been easy, but it had always been hers, and that made all the difference.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!